Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Titanic first class staterooms, and there was a bunch. The Titanic had over 371 first class staterooms, 41 of which could be used as second class staterooms. They were located along the boat deck, A deck, B deck, C deck, D deck, and E deck. And just at the beginning of the video, I'm going to go over their main locations. So on the boat deck, there were 6 standard staterooms, first class. On A deck, there were 36 labeled A1 through 37 with no room A13. On B deck, there were 101 staterooms, all styled in different periods and labeled from B1 to B102. B151 and 52 were counted as staterooms even though they were only sitting rooms and had no beds. Also, the parlor suites were located on B deck 51, 53, 55 and cabins 52, 54, and 56. Both of those suites had the private promenade decks. That is one of the things that the Olympic did not have. It was the most expensive ticket on the Titanic. C deck had 134 staterooms. D deck had 49 total staterooms, and E deck had only four first class staterooms, E200 through 203, and 41 rooms which could alternate between first and second class, labeled E1 to E42. So when it comes to the price of the first class staterooms, the cheapest could be had for what is the equivalent to around $2,500 today. That was the cheapest first class ticket back in 1912 without meals. Most suites ranged from around $50,000 all the way up to $84K. That is in modern money. The 120 special staterooms on B and C decks were richly appointed in 11 different period styles. Some styles had different variations used in certain staterooms which incorporated elements from other periods, bringing the total of different designs to 19, including the 11 base styles. And this is really one of the cool things about the first class staterooms when you actually do research into them. I'm gonna try and find as many photos I can of all the different styles, but basically how the first class staterooms worked, especially the ones towards the middle of the ship, like on B and C deck, the main 120 ones that were really expensive, they all had different styles. You could go into one room, walk over to the next, and they'd be completely different. You know, different architecture, really, really sweet, unique feature of it. And then you also did have on B deck the 2 private promenade decks. You had different sitting rooms. The sitting rooms also were different styles. First class accommodations occupied almost the entire B and C decks, but also large sections forward of A, D, and E decks. A handful of first class cabins were located on the boat deck between the forward grand staircase and the officers' quarters. That would be kind of cool to have a first class stateroom on the boat deck. I'd imagine you'd get some natural light into it, but also when you look at the hallways, it's very interesting because some of the hallways are very wide, like the hallways going to the main grand staircase are very wide, but then you also have first class hallways in different corridors that are very skinny. So that kind of an interesting thing there. The other thing that I'll say, and I believe it is different from the movie, in the movie, when when they're going into the first class and they're in the hallways, there's carpeting on the ground. I do not believe that's how it really was in real life. That was something that was added for the movie. Also, the location of the private promenade deck when it comes to in the movie, it's not accurate. So that was another movie inaccuracy. When it came to the bathrooms, as was standard at the time, the bulk of first-class bathroom facilities were shared. A passenger could take a bath by notifying a steward who would draw the bath based on availability. Because of the need to conserve limited freshwater supplies, baths were supplied with seawater. Only the showers of the private bathrooms utilized freshwater. Titanic had an impressive ratio of private bathrooms to passengers, more than any other ship in 1912. Virtually all of the suites on B and C decks featured in-suite bathrooms, which was very rare even in first class for the time period. The most splendid first class accommodation on both the Titanic and Olympic were the 4 parlor suites, 2 each on B and C decks just aft of the grand staircase landings. The 2 on B deck were the advertised deluxe parlor suites or promenade suites with the private promenade deck that spanned 50 feet across. The promenade deck connected the first class gangway entrances immediately forward, enabling the copious amounts of luggage usually carried by Titanic's richest passengers to be loaded directly into their suites. That's a nice little bonus feature. So they had an entrance where your luggage would be loaded right next to where the private promenade deck was. And when it comes to all of the first class staterooms, where are they now at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean? There has been relatively little exploration of the first class staterooms on Titanic. Only the staterooms in the bow section forward of the grand staircase survived. In James Cameron's 2001 expedition down to the wreck site, he focused on the cabins of some of the more famous Titanic passengers, and that's where many of these images come from. And I would say when it comes to an iconic first-class stateroom wreck image, it would be the image of the bed. That was kind of the more famous one. Also, I think they got a shot of the fireplace as well during Cameron's dive in 2001. A lot of the rooms were affected significantly by the Titanic breaking in half, with rooms going throughout virtually the entire middle section of the ship. That's going to happen, and all we're left with. The one thing I'll say, when you look at the bow, I'm sure there are some unexplored first-class staterooms. Not only did the breakup ruin a lot of these rooms, but also you had, when the Titanic was going to the ocean floor and hit, the downblast effect really killed a lot of the rooms where the hole was open after the breakup. And you can see some of the different main designs that were exclusive to B and C deck. These were the nicer suites, the nicer first-class staterooms. And one of the things that I really like is the different design among the porthole. Some of the portholes actually looked like windows because they were square based on how the design was. Kind of a cool little factor there that I feel like, even doing research into it, you learn different things, you see different designs. I would really love to see all the different designs lined up next to each other when it came to the first class. It's kind of interesting. Normally we think now, if you get a first class room in a hotel or even on a ship, they're all going to have the exact same style. They're all going to look the same. That's not how it was back in 1912. They had completely different looking rooms, even, very elegant rooms. And most of the first class, it was very expensive, but they had to share first class bathrooms outside of the B and C deck. So that is the current status of the first class cabins on Titanic. There were a ton of them. It was one of the main features of the ship. They were located all in and around the grand staircase area, in and around a lot of the different first class rooms. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.